And welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, September 26th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, let's break out the 2025 crystal ball once again for a little buy or sell. The sleepometer. We were talking beforehand. I was trying to figure out. Sleeperometer, excitometer. I went with sleepometer. It feels like it puts sleeper and meter together. I don't know.
Like sleepometer versus excitometer, that almost sounds like they're different things.
Basically, what it's going to be is I have a list of players. Do any of them have sleeper appeal for 2025?
Yeah, it feels more like a binary. You know, like maybe it's the sleeper switch, and it's either on or off.
All right. We're going with the sleeper switch on today's show. What went wrong for these two pitchers this season, Zac Gallen and Kevin Gausman, and much more.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
All right, players of the night. Scott, we will start with you.
Going to go with Wyatt Langford. Wyatt has not been so quiet here in September. He had a sock and a shoe on Wednesday. That was his 14th home run of the season, 17th steal. And for the month of September now, Wyatt Langford is batting .306 with 6 homers and 5 steals. What if he was doing this all along? I did say at the time Dylan Cruz was called up that even though Wyatt Langford had disappointed us up to that point, I thought it was basically a coin flip which of those two rookie outfielders would perform better the rest of the way. And it turns out it's been Wyatt Langford who's performed much, much better of the two the rest of the way. And I think is with the strong finish is if we were to apply the sleeper switch to him, I think it would definitely be on for next year. And part of the reason why I thought it was a coin flip whether Langford or Cruz would perform better is because I feel like the data has been pretty strong for Langford this whole time. He's been hitting the ball reasonably hard all along. He's been making contact at a reasonably high rate. He's been putting the ball in the air at a reasonable clip. And he's been pulling it well enough that you feel like that should all translate to a good home run total. So I don't really know why he's fallen short of expectations this year, but I think the underlying data is still very strong. And now that we're seeing him with almost a year of almost a full season of experience under his belt, we're seeing him convert that data into actual production. I think he's like I said, renewing his appeal for next year.
I do think some of the batted ball stuff under the hood has been a little bit underwhelming for Langford this year. He has done a good job putting the ball in the air and pulling it, but 89.6 average exit velocity, 9.2% barrel rate. You know, both of those numbers could be better.
They could be better, but they're fine. Like we see very productive players. That's like 50th, 60th percentile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't have any other red flags in your hitting profile, that's plenty good enough. And I imagine it could get higher.
There's nothing in Langford's 2024 production that suggests, okay, this is a budding superstar. But there's nothing in his production that suggests he isn't a major leaguer, certainly. And when you're talking about a 22-year-old who had played, 47 games or whatever it was in the minors before getting called up, I think the fact that there's not really anything negative to point to in his profile probably bodes pretty well because he's a really good athlete. He's big. I think the quality of contact is more likely to improve than not. And the plate discipline's quite good. He doesn't chase very much at all.
The plate discipline is fantastic.
He is an elite athlete. This is a 225-pound outfielder who's in the 98th percentile in sprint speed. The speed score hasn't really made it to Major League Baseball, but it's a big deal in football where if you run a 4.4, but you're 220 pounds, it's a lot better than running it at 170 pounds kind of thing. And I think that speaks to the kind of athlete Wyatt Langford is, and the lack of serious holes in his game makes me think that a big step forward is likely in year 2.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like the exit velocity is an issue, though. It like if he was having a monstrous season, I wouldn't look at his exit velocity readings and say, "Oh, but here's why it won't continue, because they're only 60th percentile." You know, like it's you can be really, really productive with as hard as Dylan Cruz is already hitting the ball.
Wyatt Langford.
But yeah, as hard as Wyatt Langford's already hitting the ball. But yeah, I mean, I think it could get better. This was his first year out of college, and like I said, he's showing in September what a little bit of experience against major league pitching can add up to.
And the quality of contact in September has jumped up tremendously for what it's worth. 91.8 average exit velocity, 14% barrel rate in September for Wyatt Langford. We'll bring him up again a little bit later on when we do our buy or sell for next season. Chris, over to you, player of the night.
And I went with Zac Gallen, who had a weird season. I think it's fair to say. Remember last year he threw 243 innings across the regular season and postseason, and I think it's fair to say some of that caught up to him this year. His strikeout rate, lowest it's been ever in a major league season. His walk rate, highest it's been since 2021. But finishing the season strong. 7 or more strikeouts in 6 of his final 7 starts, 11 strikeouts over 6 innings in this one. He was someone who was probably drafted as like an SP1 last year. And I don't think we're going to do that this year. You know, like we have 2 years in a row of the peripherals not being great. We have 2 years in a row of sort of high-ish ERAs, especially this year for a guy who's an ostensible ace. And I think there's enough evidence that Zac Gallen probably isn't that dude, that he's more of an Aaron Nola type. But I think the fact that he's finishing the season strong, the fact that while he did have a couple of injury scares, nothing was like, oh, his arm's about to fall off. I think you feel pretty good about Zac Gallen as a top 24 starter for 2025, just not a top 12 one.
I got a bad feeling about Zac Gallen. And
you think his arm's about to fall off?
I kind of feel like his arms. That was one of my bold predictions that I came out with a couple weeks ago.
That would be really bold if his arm fell off.
It's kind of a ghoulish bold prediction, but I'm just kind of a ghoul. I don't know. I see a lot of the everything seems kind of off for this guy, and I don't understand why. I see a lot of those sort of indicators that often precede a major arm issue. And considering he has ligament damage, elbow ligament damage in his past that was never resolved surgically, I think I'm going to be fading him pretty hard. Even as good as this start was against the Giants since returning from the IL 15 starts ago, so basically half a season, Zac Gallen has a 4.27 ERA, a 141 whip, 9.5 K per 9. 9.5 K per 9, that's not bad, but 10% swinging strike rate, 62%, 62% strike rate. It's all pretty bad, and really, you're just if you are drafting him, he's even as a top. What did you say? Top 24?
24-ish, yeah.
I mean, I might have to rank him that high just because of track record, but I am really hoping somebody jumps up and takes him sooner than that.
I will just say, like, he did have the sprained right elbow in 2021. Mm-hmm. He missed a month. He's had no arm issues since then.
But he didn't look right after coming back from that.
Yeah, I guess 2021 was not a great season for him, 4.30 ERA, but then he goes out and finishes top 3 in Cy Young in 2022. 2023, was he top 3 in Cy Young as well? I know he was like among the
he's-
league leaders in ERA in 2022.
Yeah.
Hasn't like the only time he's missed for injury since then was when he hurt his hamstring, both in 2021 and in 2024. So he's had no upper body issues at all. It's like
But
I don't
we've had guys pitch whole careers with damaged elbow ligaments.
right, and I don't disagree with you that there are a lot of red flags. Like I said, the xERA, the peripherals are all not nearly as good as his reputation, but they weren't last year, and so maybe we just saw the regression already this season, and Zac Gallen just isn't that kind of guy anymore. But there are so many Aaron Nola comps for Zac Gallen. Because remember, Aaron Nola was another guy who had a pretty scary, almost a decade ago now, but a pretty scary elbow issue of his own early on in his career, had some ups and downs, had some frustratingly inconsistent strikeout numbers early on as well. But he's been like the model of health among starting pitchers over the past like 5 or 6 seasons. So I don't disagree with you that there are red flags, and I don't think I'm particularly likely to draft Zac Gallen in 2025, but I don't think he's like an active fade for me. It just might be like the right situation where he falls to an SP3 range.
Mm-hmm. This is now 3 days in a row where I am bringing up the term uninspiring SP2. The other days, I did it for Aaron Nola. I did it for Logan Webb yesterday. How do you guys foresee ranking Nola, Webb, and Gallen for next season?
Like the order?
Yeah.
Nola, Webb, Gallen.
I think that's probably okay. Webb versus Gallen is the one I have the least confidence in. I could see going Gallen ahead because of the strikeout upside, but that seems fine. Yeah.
Scott, would you take Schwellenbach over any of the three? Or rank him ahead of the three?
The one I'd come closest to doing it, well, obviously Gallen is the one I'd come closest to doing it with because he's the lowest ranked of the three for me. I think so. I think I'm going to have Schwellenbach ranked ahead of Gallen, but probably not ahead of Nola and Webb.
All right, player of the night for me is going to be Erick Fedde, who was nasty in Coors Field against the Rockies. 7 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 87 pitches. He threw more cutters in the start, but really had everything working. He had 3+ whiffs on 4 different pitches: the cutter, the sinker, the sweeper, and the changeup. When it's all said and done, Erick Fedde has had a very strong first season back from Korea. I know, Scott, way back in the offseason, he was either one of the players you loved or the wandering eye that you had on Valentine's Day. And he's I don't think he's making another start. 3.30 ERA, 1.16 whip. The underlying numbers don't buy that. But still, it was a successful return to the majors for Erick Fedde.
Technically, though he had an 8-9 record, so how useful was it in fantasy? And you look at the game log, it's a lot of 5 1/3 inning starts with less than a strikeout per. I'm just not sure it was that useful, even if the ERA and WHIP were strong. And this was like his only good start with the Cardinals, right? It was one of 3 starts where he went 6 innings out of 10 with the Cardinals. So 7 of his 10 starts were less than 6 innings. And gosh, he went 2-5 with the Cardinals. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to be as high on Fedde heading into next year as I was this year.
Yeah, I think he's fine, right? Like I think in the later rounds of a roto league, if you need a stabilizer for your rotation, he'll be there. That's not nothing. It's just not much.
Yeah.
Like I'd prefer Jamison Tyone, who
They feel similar to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that I'm crazy excited about Jamison Tyone, but that's the range of the rankings we're talking about because I don't think anybody's excited about Jamison Tyone.
Yeah. Fedde is part of the sleeper switch segment for next season. Do you guys consider someone like Fedde a sleeper for next year?
No,
I
because
just switched it off.
I think sleeper implies some level of upside that I just don't think is there. Like
he's putting me to sleep.
none of his pitches had good whiff rates. His changeup whiff rate was like 15%. or
Yikes.
something, which is just crazy low. So I think more or less he's just a guy.
All right, some playoff updates for the American League wildcard. The Mariners, Tigers, Royals, Twins all won here on Wednesday. The Tigers and Royals are currently in. The Twins are 2 games out, and the Mariners are 2.5. For the NL wildcard, the D-backs won. The Mets and Braves did not play. More on that after the break. The Mets and D-backs remain 1 game ahead of the Atlanta Braves. Thanks to everybody for sending in their championship teams, their championship tweets, X's, whatever we're calling that. If we helped you win this season, feel free to let us know with a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify. Even if we didn't help you win, if you just enjoy the podcast, feel free to drop us a review. Much appreciated. Let's take our first break. When we return, we'll hit the news and notes, talk about this Mets and Braves debacle. We'll do that right after this.
At CBS Sports Galazzo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in. News and notes. Sure seems like MLB fumbled this Mets and Braves situation. Both Wednesday and Thursday's games were postponed due to Hurricane Helene. Hope everybody stays safe. What happens now? They're going to play a doubleheader on Monday.
Maybe.
What's up?
Maybe.
If those games
Matter.
have playoff implications, which they very likely will, but there's a slim chance they won't.
Yeah. So they're supposed to play that on Monday, and that's a day after the regular season was supposed to end. The playoffs start the very next day on Tuesday. So this is far from an ideal situation. If either the Mets or Braves, if they have to play both of those games, then whoever wins and winds up in the playoffs is going to have to travel the very next day to go play somebody else in the wild card round. So it's just not a great situation all around here. And they knew this weather was coming, so it kind of feels like precautions or change of plans could have been made. They both had an off day on Monday. They could have played a doubleheader on Tuesday, maybe a day game here on Wednesday. None of those things happened.
You know what it is? It sounds like the Braves were pushing back against rescheduling these games, and I think I know why. I think I figured it out. They took to heart the idea that they had too much rest last year. And now they want to make sure that they have 0 days off. And that they had too much rest last year. That's why they lost. Now they're going to have no rest. They're going to win the whole thing.
No sleep.
That's I think we figured it out.
Yeah. No, it does. Based on the little bits of the story I've gathered here and there, it does seem like there was some talk of rescheduling ahead of time, and the Braves were the ones who balked at it. So I guess if you want to point fingers, you can point it at them. On a competitive level, I think they're the most disadvantaged by this because they had Chris Sale and Max Fried lined up against the Mets, and now they got to play a doubleheader with probably neither of those guys participating in it. So I don't know. It's a mess though. It's a mess.
Yeah. And it kind of feels like the fans were robbed just of, having these 2 dramatic games throughout the week, and everyone just kind of sitting down and paying attention to what's happening just in the playoff picture throughout this week. But also, if you're just a fan of chaos, like if it does come down to those 2 games, just like on a Monday, all eyes on you. I mean, it doesn't get much more chaotic than that. So we shall see what happens with the Mets and Braves this weekend and heading into Monday. Will these games count on CBS for fantasy? That is a question we are getting a lot of right now. And to that, Scott, we will say blank.
Well, I think if you what are those special leagues called, Chris? I'm blanking on the name right now.
Like the prize leagues or whatever?
The prize leagues, yeah. I think the prize leagues have a set end date that's not going to allow them to be included. If you use the commissioner product, though, which is really what we cater to, I haven't gotten a confirmation what the default setting is yet, but in commissioner leagues, you're the you have a commissioner who ultimately makes the decision, regardless of what CBS decides. And as a commissioner, I would choose to include them because they're regular season games, and particularly if your league is counting the final week of the season, like you've taken it up to this point.
But
Then it probably means you're a stickler for including every regular season game.
I will say no roster moves.
Yeah.
No lineup changes, no roster moves.
Yeah.
For that Monday.
agreed. Francisco Lindor was set to return to the Mets lineup Wednesday, but obviously that game was postponed. Yordan Alvarez will remain in Houston to work with the training staff and will miss this weekend against the Guardians. Alvarez is dealing with a sprained right knee and trying to get right before the postseason. Grayson Rodriguez has been shut down and won't pitch again this season. He's on the IL with a lat strain. He ends his year with a 3.86 ERA, a 1.24 WHIP, 130 strikeouts, over 116 and 2/3 innings. Obviously, with the lack of innings, it's a letdown season. Even with just the ratios, I mean, we're still waiting to see that top prospect caliber elite Grayson Rodriguez season yet. It's still very early in his career, and it could come, but we haven't really seen it yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Like, it just kind of feels like everything about him should be a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those ones where it's like, you look at the whiff rates for all his pitches, and they're all pretty good, but none of them are elite. The walk rate is pretty good, but not elite. The strikeout rate is pretty good, but not. It's just like, it feels like he's not very far from being a really, really good major league pitcher. But it's
he's like the Wyatt Langford of pitchers.
But it's also less clear what the things he needs to improve on are.
Yeah.
You know, like it kind of feels like not like a master of all or jack of all. It's like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of situation with Grayson Rodriguez, where it's like he's an across the board B student. But like
feels like there's a slight tweak there, Chris, like a pitch mix or a delivery thing, because the 13.6% swinging strike rate. I mean, that is an elite mark. And, you know, look, 10K per nine is great, but based on that swinging strike rate, I mean, he might be able to lead baseball in strikeouts, right? Like he has that kind of potential based on that number. So
weirdly gets hit hard.
Yeah. And that seems like maybe a pitch selection thing that he could shore up, just the sorts of adjustments that come with experience that, you know, we do see it take a few years to all come together sometimes for players, even ones who were prospects as high end as Grayson Rodriguez. And so that may just be happening in this case. He's going to be an interesting one to rank, because sitting here now, I'm anticipating Frank's question, Zac Gallen or Grayson Rodriguez.
Exactly what was coming next.
I don't know what I want to say.
I think I would go with Gallen. Or sorry, Grayson.
Yeah, okay. Because as somebody who was down on Gallen, I was thinking of going the other way there. So I'll have to think about that more.
I just think the skill set's stronger with Grayson.
Yeah, it's just a question of how much are you going to get from him, because now 2 of the last 3 years have been dramatically injury shortened for the same reason. A lat.
Right? Like that doesn't. That's like, who was the last pitcher to have their career ruined by a lat injury? You know, like it's not like Luis Severino, I think, had a lat injury. Noah Syndergaard had a season that was ruined by a lat injury, but like it's usually not.
Carlos Martinez had I feel like his career kind of got derailed by it too.
Okay.
But maybe
what about Shane Bieber? Wasn't his a lat? Didn't that begin the? I know he was bouncing back this year, but
kind of connects to, like, it's close to the shoulder too. So I don't know. Yeah,
I'm not really worried about Grayson Rodriguez bouncing back. It didn't sound like this was a terrible lat injury, and he'd been through it once before and came back fine. It's just, is he able to hold up over a full season? We haven't really seen that yet.
Yeah, the recurring nature of it.
Unless my bold prediction comes true for Gallen, we would kind of expect him to hold up for a full season.
That's fair.
Nestor Cortez was scratched from his start Wednesday and placed on the IL with a left elbow flexor strain. Cortez said he's hopeful to return if the Yankees make a deep postseason run. And Marcus Stroman started in his place, was quite bad against the Orioles. Matt Wallner was placed in the IL with a left oblique strain. The Twins had Willie Castro, Byron Buxton, and Trevor Larnach in the outfield with Edouard Julien at DH. The Guardians activated Stephen Kwan from the IL. He was in the lineup batting leadoff and returned with a bang 2 for 4 with his 14th home run. Seiya Suzuki was not in the lineup due to a sprained ankle that he suffered on Tuesday. Ronaldo Lopez said he threw a bullpen on Tuesday at about 80% intensity and feels ready to return from the IL. Not yet clear if the Braves will indeed activate him. Bo Bichette underwent surgery Wednesday to have a pin inserted into his fractured right middle finger. He's expected to be fully ready for spring training. Here's a name, Shane McClanahan.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Shane O'Mac touched 95 miles per hour in a 16-pitch live batting practice on Wednesday. He's expected to be ready for spring training next year. It is, however, his second Tommy John surgery, which, as somebody who drafted Walker Buehler in a few leagues this year, it's a little scary.
Yeah, no, I had Walker Buehler in several leagues, and look, McClanahan was better at his best than Walker Buehler.
Walker Buehler was really good.
Walker Buehler was really good, but I think McClanahan last year was better than we've seen from Walker Buehler. I don't know. I 40 to 50 range at starting pitcher probably feels right. Like
Sandy or Shane O'Mac?
That's exactly what I was about to ask, because for tomorrow's newsletter, I just wrote a 3 that I buy to bounce back and 3 that I don't buy to bounce back in 2025. And Sandy Alcantara is kind of cheating because he didn't pitch in 2024. So like he's bouncing back from an injury, but I feel pretty confident in Sandy Alcantara. Like I think I'm going to rank him as like a top 30 pitcher, maybe top 24. Right. He was really good in the second half of 2023 after, a bad first half. He had a 3.20 ERA in the second half before the injury. So I mostly just think it was like a bad half season. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty confident first Tommy John surgery. I think he's going to bounce back. I think I'm going to rank him ahead of Shane McClanahan
by like 20 spots. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So I mean,
this is the problem is like, I think we've mentioned about 79 pitchers in the past 48 hours as potential top 30 starting pitchers for 2024, just because that's well, he's not an ace, but he doesn't suck. So yeah, he might be top 30. I don't know. I have not even begun the process of ranking starting pitchers. So I truly don't know.
It's never fun. It's never fun.
No. At least I don't have to worry about eligibility for the most part, starting pitcher.
Splitting
That's
hairs.
tripping me up everywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, last week I said McClanahan over Alcantara. I'll admit I wasn't thinking about the second Tommy John at the time, but without Alcantara, the concerns for me is he's going to be rejoining one of the worst teams in baseball, and he's not a strikeout pitcher. Mm-hmm. So probably probably no help in wins, probably no help or little help in strikeouts.
Yeah.
And so he's really got to nail it with the ERA and whip, and that's going to be a tough ask.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think I'm going to rank Sandy ahead of Shane McClanahan. But it might be close. I don't know if Sandy's going to be top 30. Maybe he's like top 40-ish or something like that. But yeah, all offseason, I guess, to figure that out. Dalton Varsho, who just had right shoulder surgery, is expected to be close to a full participant for spring training next year. The Cubs recalled one of their top prospects, Kevin Alcantara, 22 years old, huge dude at 6'6". This season in the minors hit 278 with 14 home runs, 14 steals, a 781 OPS. I actually saw him in the Arizona Fall League last year. He looks even bigger in person. Some loud exit velocities. It's just like the crack of the bat sounded a little bit different from him than other guys. He's loaded with tools, but Scott, we haven't really seen that play out in like big minor league production yet for Kevin Alcantara.
Yeah, not yet, and maybe not ever, but it's a profile that prospect hounds like to bet on. He's generally ranked higher than his production would suggest. And, that was kind of true for O'Neal Cruz once upon a time. And then the production started to be there too. And I feel like it's a similar build, similar athleticism here for Kevin Alcantara. We have seen him in the majors before. So there's that. Actually, we haven't. Never mind. I was thinking of the other guy. Sorry. We haven't seen Kevin Alcantara in the majors. But yeah, it's an interesting profile. I just think it's kind of a sit back and watch situation. Even, it's not like he's going to have a chance to make a big impression here prior to next year.
Yep. Speaking of prospects, the Arizona Fall League rosters have been announced, and some of the headliners, Jack Caglione, who was just drafted by the Royals in this year's draft, is the top prospect according to MLB Pipeline that will be in the Arizona Fall League. Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries, both from the Padres, Xavier Isaac from the Rays, Colt Emerson and Cole Young from the Mariners, Moises Ballesteros from the Cubs, Bryce Eldridge from the Giants, Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert from the Mets, Termar Johnson from the Pirates, and two returnees, Colson Montgomery and Chase DeLauder, are headed back out to play in the Arizona Fall League. And I cannot recommend enough, if you haven't done it, even if you have, to go back again. First Pitch Arizona, a fantasy baseball conference that is put together by the good folks over at Baseball HQ. This year, it'll be October 31st through November 3rd. It's at the Sheraton Mesa Wrigleyville. You get to watch Arizona Fall League games, attend live panels and podcasts. You can participate in way too early drafts. You can meet your favorite experts if they're there, and much more. It's an amazing weekend. Unfortunately, I will not be there. I went the previous 2 years, but I do highly recommend that you go if you are on the fence. You can check it out, baseballhq.com/pricing/First Pitch Arizona 2024. Let's take our final break. When we return, we'll look into the crystal ball, buy or sell for 2025, right after this.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Welcome back in. Buy or sell. Looking into the 2025 crystal ball. Literally looking into this amazing crystal baseball. If you are watching on YouTube, shout out to Dave Coffey, who shipped this over to help enhance the podcast. He's actually competing for the championship in the For the People Listener League as well. So, Chris, we've been pulling up like random baseballs while we do this segment, but now we have...
I still got mine.
Yeah, there you go. We have a legitimate crystal baseball that we can look into to help us figure out... what do you got there, Scott?
It's like a golf ball.
It's like one of those spinny soccer ball fidget toys.
Okay.
Ever seen those?
Yeah. So we have it all working here to try and figure out what's going to happen in 2025. And first up, George Kirby, who turned in a quality start here at the Astros. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts with 12 whiffs on 96 pitches. He has turned in 3 straight quality starts. And unless I'm mistaken, his season will end with a 3.53 ERA and a 107 whip, just under a strikeout per inning. Buy or sell, George Kirby should be the top Mariners pitcher drafted in 2025.
I don't really see a case for him ahead of Logan Gilbert.
So that sounds like you're selling.
Yeah, I would sell it. I mean, Gilbert finishes... How many strikeouts did Kirby get today? 6?
Yes.
He finishes the season... I assume Gilbert's not going to make another start, so he finishes the season with 34 fewer strikeouts in...
Pitched yesterday. He might pitch Sunday.
Yeah, he might. So at least 34 fewer strikeouts for George Kirby than Logan Gilbert. Worse whip, significantly worse whip, actually. Logan Gilbert leads the majors in whip. So I think I would have to take Gilbert, who's like, I don't know, 90% the control pitcher that George Kirby is, but has more strikeout skills. I can see a path to more strikeouts for Kirby. I just don't know if he's ever going to take it. It seems like he really never wants to walk anyone. And, you're running in zone rates of like 55, 56, 57%. I think it's just always going to be really, really hard to get strikeouts that way. And I don't think like we did the thing already with George Kirby where we're like, he's going to take a step forward in strikeouts, and it didn't happen this year. So I don't see much reason to give him that credit when Logan Gilbert's already done that.
Yeah, I sell this because I agree Logan Gilbert needs to rank ahead of George Kirby, though they'll probably be pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah.
And Kirby ahead of Luis Castillo, right?
Yes.
I think it would have to be, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Luis Castillo kind of feels like he's going to be in that uninspiring SP2 range as well, right?
Yeah, and he's like
yeah, I like him more than Aaron Nola or Logan Webb or certainly Zac Gallen.
It just feels like he's very clearly on the decline.
Maybe
he bounces back next year, but
he went from having arguably the best four-seam fastball in baseball to just like a pretty good one. And man, everything really kind of took a big step backwards as a result of that. So I don't know how much I want to bet on the soon to be 32-year-old figuring that back out. That's not super old, but it's an age where you probably shouldn't bet on guys recapturing previous skills.
I mean, it was still a really effective pitch for him.
Yeah, no, it was.
And
it
the
just
velocity wasn't that much lower.
It just wasn't as effective.
I think Luis Castillo, I mean, look, he had better numbers than Nola, right?
Oh, yeah, no, in terms of relative to Nola and Gallen, and I think he might rank ahead of those guys for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're all
similar numbers to Nola.
Uninspiring, I guess, for a reason, right? Like, I don't think I'm going to be excited to draft any of them. Well, maybe they fall, but.
And the thing that's tough with Castillo is he kind of always had slightly inflated ERAs relative to other guys drafted around him. And I feel like Pablo Lopez has kind of stepped into that as like the ace whose ERA is just a little uglier than you want it to be.
Yeah.
But now that the rest of the profile has taken a step back for Castillo, it's like you can see a 4+ ERA fairly for Castillo in the lower end of the spectrum.
All right, let's move on to Wyatt Langford, who we did talk a lot about early on in the show. Buy or sell, Wyatt Langford goes 25-25 next season.
So that's 11 more home runs and 8 more stolen bases. I'll buy it.
I think so too.
It's aggressive. It's a little more aggressive than I want to go. I'll sell it just to be different, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility.
Yusei Kikuchi continues to pitch well with the Astros. 6 innings, 2 unearned runs with 8 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 98 pitches. And in 10 starts with Houston, 2.70 ERA, .92 whip, 76 strikeouts over 60 innings. And now I was kind of talking myself into like, oh, wow, the Astros have kind of helped Kikuchi figure it out. I forgot he was a free agent. So yeah. I don't know if he'll be back with the Astros again next season, but buy or sell, the Astros have unlocked Yusei Kikuchi.
I think it is probably a mistake to buy this one. They have made tangible changes to his approach, but I'll just point out that his final 21 starts last year, he had a 3.56 ERA, 3.20 FIP, 129 strikeouts in 111 innings. He gave a lot of that back this year. And it took a really good run at the end he's going to finish still with an ERA above 4. And he doesn't put up a ton of innings. He's going to he got to 200 strikeouts this season. Way to go.
That's pretty good.
And he is a free agent. So yeah. I lean sell.
So I was looking to see if he had ever thrown his slider as much as he had with the Astros, because that's the main thing that's changed for him. He's thrown the slider a lot more. He's thrown it, having to average it in my head, but it's about 37% of the time with the Astros. And the most he had thrown it prior to that was 28% of the time his rookie season. So big increase.
I think it was a different type of slider too.
Yeah. There've been a lot of changes since 2019, obviously, but I don't necessarily trust him to keep it going, particularly if he's not with the Astros. So I'm also going to sell it.
All right. And last up, we have Jackson Jobe, who made his major league debut up against Tampa Bay. He closed out the ninth inning in a 7-1 game, and he only threw 9 pitches. He averaged 98 miles per hour on the fastball. He topped out at 99.3. He did not throw a slider, which I thought was interesting. He did throw 3 cutters, which averaged 2,515 RPM, which for a cutter, that seems pretty good. I wish he threw a slider. So
where's that slider? Where's those 3,000 RPM?
I would have liked to see that. Buy or sell, Jackson Jobe will be in the Tigers opening day rotation.
All right, so Tarek Skubal.
I buy it. I don't think they have enough worthy arms to fill it out.
We just stopped at Skubal.
Reese Olson.
Yeah.
Is Casey Mize really locked in? I guess, since he's still cheap, but yeah, I think you probably buy it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would make I think even more than the sleeper switch. That's probably like the breakout switch. The breakout alliteration with a B.
Breakout button.
Breakout button. Yeah, let's go. I was gonna say the breakout bar. He jumped over the bar. But yeah, button goes better.
I think how much enthusiasm there is for Jackson Jobe is going to depend largely on spring training.
Yeah. That makes sense.
He ended up throwing 109 innings, I think, this season, right? Anybody know with any confidence on that number?
I will pull it up very quickly, and he is up to 73 and 290 plus 18. So
91, 92 plus whatever he gets. So I think you could probably project 140 innings next year.
Yeah.
It might make sense for them to just hold him back, like Paul Skeens.
But trying for the draft pick compensation, I think makes sense there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll buy it, but it'll require some innings management across the season, and it might be easier to do at the front end than the back end.
All right, the 2025 sleeper switch. Are we switching it on? We're turning it off for all these names? Let's find out. Parker Meadows continues to hit 3 for 5 with his 9th home run in 43 games since returning from the IL. He's batting .291 with 6 home runs, 5 steals, and OPS over 800. What do we think? Parker Meadows, the sleeper switch.
I am flipping that switch up.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the terminology we want to use, but that's what I'm debuting here for this segment. And the biggest reason is that since returning from the minors in those 43 games, just a 20% strikeout rate.
Mm-hmm.
If Parker Meadows is going to do that, then I think the speed alone is reason to target him in 5 outfielder leagues, and he's certainly put himself in position to have a job next year, which was always a question for him too. So yeah, I'm calling Meadows a sleeper.
Okay. What about DJ Hers, who turned in another solid start up against Kansas City, 5 innings, 1 run with 3 strikeouts. And he was coming off a rough start, 7 earned runs, but he has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 10 of 12 starts since being recalled on July 23rd. It kind of feels like there are enough pieces here. He gets a lot of whiffs on his fastball. The changeup and slider look like pretty good pitches as well. What do we think? DJ Hers, sleeper switch, on or off?
So I have a pretty chaotic writing style, and the way I organize my writing is I have a Google Doc that just is called random. And I have 4 unfinished columns from the various parts of the year and various ideas. And I have sleepers, breakouts, and busts, and I'm adding players to that. And I already have DJ Hers on my sleepers list for what I'm going to write within the next couple of weeks. So yes, the switch is on. DJ Hers, sleeper. I like him.
I think the only way he's going to be a sleeper for me is if everybody's legitimately sleeping on him. If there's a lot of enthusiasm for DJ Hers, I think I'm going to fade him because I don't think the upside is enough to make up for the downside if you're giving up something worthwhile for him. If the opportunity cost is anything really.
Yeah, I'm betting he's not a top 175 pick.
No. I could see.
But I'm not even sure I'd want him as a top 225 pick.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say.
think I would, man. 332 xERA, 29% strikeout rate. There are some legitimate skills here. It's probably too fastball heavy. Like I think he needs the changeup or slider to take a step forward. The fastball is carrying a lot of weight, although the curveball has flashed. He doesn't throw it very often, but there are some interesting signs there. But I think I'm willing to draft him in a head-to-head points league next year. I would say that.
And I feel like the 200 to 250 range is often where we find a lot of quote unquote sleeper pitchers and sleepers just in general, but obviously a lot of sleeper pitchers usually live in that range. Who do you think you'll be more excited about, him or Bowden Francis?
Oh, I think Bowden Francis is going to go a lot earlier.
Yeah. I guess I would have to be more excited about Francis because there's a little more proof of concept, but like it's so hard to understand exactly how he enjoyed his success that I don't know. I might think that Hur's skill set is a little stronger.
Okay. Alejandro Kirk has hit better in the second half. He's batting .270 with 3 home runs, 30 RBI, a .725 OPS, still just a .397 slug during that time. What do we think? Alejandro Kirk, the sleeper switch.
Well, I ranked him as my 20th catcher for next year. So in 2 catcher leagues, I think he needs to be drafted. Does that make him a sleeper? So you gave the second half numbers in 46 games since taking over as the Blue Jays starting catcher because they traded Danny Jansen. He's hit .290, which he's going to need to hit for average with his profile to be worthwhile. Only 3 home runs in those 46 games. The OPS is around .750. Keeps the strikeout rate low. It's just, is he better than like Keibert Ruiz? Is Alejandro Kirk basically just another Keibert Ruiz who might not play as often? That would give him little chance of being better than the 20th catcher.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a chance they just DFA him, right? Like that's unlikely. He's second-year arbitration eligible. He's probably going to make like $4 million.
Do they have another direction they can go at
that? They have a prospect, right?
I think just for the defense, they'd keep him around for $4 million.
Okay.
And consider anything he provides offensively to be gravy. Like he should have been their starting catcher all along because he's better defender than Danny Jansen by a pretty significant margin.
I don't see a catcher in their top 30, at least according to MLB.
I thought they had one. Maybe not. Okay.
You're probably thinking of Moises Ballesteros, who literally looks like Alejandro Kirk.
Maybe that actually might be what I'm thinking because these Cubs wear blue as well. That might be what I was thinking of.
Yeah. What about Edward Cabrera, Chris? Can we talk ourselves into it again for another season? No. Should we just move on?
No.
I mean, 3 of his last 4 starts were good.
I know, like the last 11 starts, he has a 3.57 ERA. It's still a mediocre 121 WHIP. That's not terrible, but it's not great. It's still a 4 walks per 9. It's still mediocre, like less than a strikeout per inning.
He has to throw strikes, and we
just might happen. It might happen, but I think Cabrera is 100% in a he has to prove it range, and this is not enough to have proved it. There are enough interesting pitchers in the later rounds that I do not think I will be shopping at the Edward Cabrera store this year.
I think the upside case and the downside case for Edward Cabrera isn't that far off from DJ Hurst. So I think it's more likely people will be sleeping, like legitimately sleeping on Cabrera. I'm not going to draft him in like a 12-team head-to-head league. We're not going to go deep enough into the draft, but in something deeper as a late-round flyer, I'm not totally writing off Edward Cabrera.
I will just say there were a lot of 15-team leagues where I was the only person with any interest in drafting Edward Cabrera this year, and then he stunk this year. So I'd be surprised even in 15-team leagues if he got drafted.
Yeah, that's fair. But that makes him even more of a sleeper.
It's a real deep sleeper.
Deep sleeper. I've got a few of those coming up as well. Luis Ortiz of the Pirates, 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, and he has a quality start in 4 of his last 6 outings. During that stretch, a 2.60 ERA and a 1.04 WHIP. Anything here? Sleeper switch.
I don't see it.
I honestly don't see anything here.
Yeah.
I mean, he finishes the year with a 3.32 ERA and 1.11 WHIP. So that's not even like that's what you want your sleepers to do.
Yeah.
But I just don't see how he did that or how he'll continue to do that.
Yeah, below average strikeout skills, not really great on quality of contact, pretty average. It all adds up to a totally uninteresting pitcher to me.
Mm-hmm. And then 2 deep sleepers. We're talking, this is like the best REM sleep you've ever got in your life. Jonathan Clase, 3 for 3 with his first career home run here on Wednesday. He now plays for the Blue Jays. He came over at the trade deadline. He had 38 steals in the minors this year. He had 79 steals in the minors last year. The Blue Jays kind of feel like they're in a transition period. He might have an opportunity to play next year. I don't know. Jonathan Clase?
He wasn't good at AAA for them. And I don't think there's enough in the batting profile, like bad plate discipline, poor exit velocities. Okay, he can run fast. We're talking reserve rounds of an AL draft, I think, for Jonathan Clase.
I think it would only be like, you mentioned earlier, Dalton Varsho is expected to be close to full activity for spring training. I think it would have to be a Tommy Edmonds situation where we get to spring training, he's just not cleared at all to even start to consider it. But I could start to consider it if that was the case.
Mm-hmm. And the last name on this list, Jacob Junis, who pitched well again, 5 innings, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts, and last 4 starts with the Reds. It is a 1.71 ERA, a .57 WHIP. He's bounced around the past couple of years. I don't even know if he gets the chance to start or where he'll be, but he's pitched well here. Overall this season, I mean, a 2.69 ERA and a .85 WHIP.
I think Jacob Junis is the – hold on. Let me get there. Who was the other forget it. He's a poor man's Nick Martinez at best. I think it's –
Yeah. I haven't called Jacob Junis a sleeper since like 2017, so that's not about to change.
Fair enough. What went wrong with these pitchers this season? We already spoke about Zac Gallen. Kevin Gausman turned in a quality start here, 6 innings, 1 run with 3 strikeouts. Last 9 starts, he has a 2.22 ERA and a 1.04 WHIP, well under a strikeout per inning. The underlying numbers not buying this great, on the surface, great stretch from Kevin Gausman. What went wrong? And any chances of a bounce back next year?
I mean, I can't say there's no chance, but remember, he dealt with a shoulder injury in spring training, came back. The shape of his splitter was all wrong. It never really got right. I can see it, right? Like, he gets through the offseason healthy. He gets through spring training without an incident. Maybe, but do I really want to bet on a 34-year-old doing that? I think you're better off not doing that.
It reminds me a little of when Justin Verlander came back from Tommy John surgery, and he had a Cy Young season, but everything underneath it suggested this guy is on the decline. And I didn't heed it then for him, and he hasn't been good since, basically. Gausman's not as old as Verlander was then, but it's a similar situation. He is old, just generally speaking, and it's a similar situation where, okay, the top line numbers, not Cy Young worthy, but still good, but everything underneath is kind of like,
I'm not sure Gausman's going to be a top 40 starting pitcher for me in 2025. I was looking, I wrote about him for tomorrow's newsletter as a bounce back candidate to fade for 2025. And I wrote about Carlos Rodon as one that I'm actually maybe buying. There's actually some really interesting post July 1st splits for Carlos Rodon. That was when he threw away his cutter. And like Gausman has had the better season. I'm going to rank Rodon higher in 2025. Like if I was going to bet on one post 30 ace to bounce back, it would be Rodon ahead of Gausman.
3 hitters who've hit much better in the second half. Nico Hoerner had a 2-homer game here on Wednesday, and in the second half, batting .299, only 3 homers, 37 runs, 16 steals for Hoerner. Cedric Mullins in the second half, .245 with 9 home runs, 14 steals, and an .805 OPS. And Jake Berger, up and down in the second half. He had that ridiculous stretch, and then he cooled off, and now he's picking things back up. But the overall second half numbers, .273, 19 home runs, and a .910 OPS. Berger, Mullins, Hoerner, big second halves.
Yeah, it's actually been going on since June 1st for Cedric Mullins, that magic tape for so many hitters that turned their season around. So basically, final 2/3 of the season for Cedric Mullins, he's hit .257 with 12 homers, 21 steals, an OPS approaching 800, just a 16% strikeout rate. Like this is, other than that 30-30 season, Cedric Mullins' last 4 months is about as the best he's ever been. And it's gonna make me take a second look at him when I rank my outfielders, because I had kind of written him off as an impact player in fantasy. There may be something there still.
It feels like there's a decent chance he gets traded, right? Like they just have such a I know he's been really good.
Yeah.
Who's their center fielder if they trade him?
I think Hauser has played center field in the minors,
but not.
Yeah.
Wouldn't assume
not
he's
as well.
great. Yeah. That is a fair question. I just.
Because that was kind of the argument
clear.
I made for him as a bust this year.
Yeah.
They just kind of phase him out of the lineup.
And there was a time when it seemed like that was happening.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's kind of gone unremarked upon, but the Orioles' offense has been pretty rough for a little while here. They've been one of the biggest disappointments in baseball in the second half of the season, and Mullins is a rare exception. So I do wonder what that looks like. It feels like the guy who's about to turn 30 seems like the easiest guy to get out of the way if you're trying to clear a glut. But that's a fair point about the center field position.
Yeah. And I also wanted to comment for Nico Hoerner. Spoiler alert here. It's my number 7 ranked second baseman for next year, which is an indictment of the second base position more than anything. But also says something about Nico.
Is that in Roto or head-to-head points?
Floor. That's in Roto.
So you have him ahead of Luis Garcia? Or is he 6?
Nope.
I think we talked about
that. Luis Garcia is 6, Nico Hoerner 7th. I have him ahead of Bryce Terang.
Bryce Terang in Roto.
Yeah.
Okay. You have him ahead of Xavier Edwards?
Xavier Edwards is not a second baseman.
Not second base eligible. See, this is what I was talking about earlier.
So as Nico Hoerner's season's gone like this, Bryce Terang's has gone like this.
Absolutely.
And the track record for Bryce Terang is also much worse in general. So, yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Hoerner. He's kind of had bad BABIP luck, not insanely bad BABIP luck, but like his actual batting average is less than his expected batting average. And yet he still had a decent batting average. He only stole 1 base in April, and yet he's finishing with 30-plus steals. So he's really salvaged his season here, and it's not as good as last year, but I think Hoerner's proven he has a nice floor for fantasy.
Colton Cowser, by the way, has played 44 games in center field this season and is 96th percentile in outs above average. So
that's pretty good.
Okay. He might be able to play center field if they want to trade Cedric Mullins. I don't know if they want to, but he is entering his final year of team control, Cedric Mullins is. So maybe they would look to trade him in the offseason. And while we're talking about Nico Hoerner, I think there's a chance they could look into trading him as well. The Cubs have kind of a glut of infielders, and they've got some prospects coming, and Matt Shaw that I think they want to play. But yeah, they almost have too many names. So I think maybe Nico Hoerner could be on the move there. Some hitting leftover. Shohei Ohtani continues to just do everything. 2 for 3 with his 56th steal. He also has 53 home runs. Fernando Tatis 2 for 3 with his 21st homer. It was a bomb.
Yeah, it was.
Since returning, he's batting .295 with 7 homers, 2 steals, a .967 OPS. Julio Rodriguez stayed hot. He hit his 20th home run. His updated numbers last 26 games, .359, 9 homers, 6 steals, and OPS over 1,000 for J-Rod. Jose Ramirez had himself a huge game. He actually finished a single short of the cycle, 3 for 4 with a double, a triple, a home run. Not only is he chasing a 40-40 season, he's chasing 40-40-40, which would be 40 doubles, 40 homers, 40 steals. It's only been done 2 other times in MLB history. He's at 38 doubles, 38 home runs, 40 steals on the season. The production has dipped for Gunnar Henderson in the second half. July and August, not so great. He has picked things back up in a big way in September, batting .333 with 4 homers, 6 steals, and an OPS just over 1,000. And Aaron Judge and Juan Soto have homered in the same game 13 times this season. For Aaron Judge, it was his 57th homer. For Soto, it was his 41st. And Judge, the first hitter with 140 RBI since 2009.
So Ryan Howard?
I didn't see.
That'd be too late for Ryan Howard.
No, it might be because the Yankees faced the Phillies in the World Series that year. Might have been.
Yeah, Ryan Howard, 141 RBI in 2009.
That's a good call. Wow, right off the dome.
Pull.
Look at you.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a lot of RBI.
Yeah. Anything to add here?
Too many.
Honestly, it's just like stud hitters being awesome here on Wednesday.
Too many. Yeah, I think I don't really worry about the second half slide for Gunnar Henderson. He was never going to be 1,000 OPS guy. That's pretty rarefied air. So he settles in at the end of the season as a 905 OPS. That makes a lot of sense. Looking ahead to 2025, you probably take the under on 37 homers, right? That's a really high number. Even for a young guy, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a setback, but overall, he's awesome. He's a first rounder. There's no question about it. And let Jose Ramirez be a lesson that when you see an elite player with weirdly low home run or run and RBI totals, you should probably not worry about it. Because that was the biggest knock against Jose Ramirez coming into the season. It's he only had it was 85 runs and 85 RBI. It was really, really low numbers. And
I feel like he passed that back in July of this.
Yeah, it was a complete fluke. The offense around him got better, and he just had much better results. Yeah, he had 80 RBI, 87 runs in 156 games last year. He's going to finish with 115 of each.
To be fair, he also has 14 more homers and 12 more.
Oh, he's been better. Yeah, he's been better.
Yeah, I do think there is something to whatever they've done in Progressive Field, if it's still Progressive Field, where they've kind of opened up a wind tunnel that goes out to right field, and their park factors for left-handed power are just
they may have closed the wind tunnel in the second half, though.
Yeah,
it is still Progressive Field.
Yeah. All right. Some bullpen updates for the Guardians. Emmanuel Clase gave up a hit and a walk. Walk 2, picked up his 47th save, the most in a single season in Guardians history for Emmanuel Clase. For the Pirates, Aroldis Chapman gave up a hit, but struck out 1 for his 12th save. For the Royals, Lucas Urseg struck out 1 for his 13th. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley got the final 2 outs for his 48th save. For the D-backs, Justin Martinez entered in the 7th inning with a 4-run lead, facing 5, 6, and 7 in the Giants lineup. He recorded 4 outs. He gave up 1 run on a walk and 3 hits. AJ Puck recorded 3 outs across the 8th and 9th innings. And then Kevin Ginkel got the final 2 outs to finish out that one.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. And
love to see that.
Yeah,
Just
I know you're
total mess.
You're a big fan of AJ Puck, right, Scott? Getting that job eventually.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously this year's basically over, so it's not worth analyzing that much. But it would appear that Justin Martinez is on the outs, as he should be.
And then for the Dodgers, Michael Kopech walked 1, but struck out 1 for his 15th save of the season. To stream or not to stream on, I don't know what just happened here. Who did this? Somebody did something with the notes, and it kind of messed up a bunch of stuff. But anyway, on Thursday, we have Tyler Anderson.
I wasn't even looking at it, so it couldn't have been me. It might have been me.
Yeah. For Thursday, Tyler Anderson at the White Sox, Aaron Savali at the Pirates, Kumar Rocker at the A's, David Festa versus the Marlins.
Do you ever have that? I mean, I'm sure you do, Chris, as a fellow writer, where you enter something in the keyboard and you realize the cursor isn't where you thought it was, and you have no idea what screen or document you entered that to, and then you just randomly stumble across it.
You're just alt tabbing and control Zing until you get back to normal. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what happened here in the notes. Anyway,
Thursday, Reese Olson, Tyler Anderson are the two that I would start. Olson, I guess there's some concern that he won't go deep because he only threw 4 innings in his most recent start.
Yeah, and it wasn't very effective. I wouldn't be thrilled to use him.
I think I'd go Anderson.
Sleeper switch on, by the way, for Reese Olson.
Yeah, I like Reese Olson long term.
Yeah. Anderson, Savali, and Festa, I think, for Thursday.
Yeah, the Marlins have been weirdly annoying, scoring runs early on in games lately and screwing up starting pitchers. But I still think their offense is bad. So yeah, Anderson, Festa, and Savali.
Mm-hmm. And then on Friday, we have Jameson Taillon facing the Reds. We have, this is JP Sears at the Mariners, I guess, could work out.
And he was high on the sleeper pitchers for this week, but there haven't been many good sleeper pitchers in recent weeks. So.
I don't
like. As soon as Reed Detmers just destroyed us for a 2-start week, he's going to go out and just have.
He's going to strike out 14.
100%. I'm not saying to use him. I'm just saying that's going to happen.
I don't want to use any. I don't
like any. Taillon is the closest, and I don't like Taillon.
If my championship is on the line, I'd have to be in dire straits, I think, to use any of these guys right now. Jameson Taillon against Cincinnati. Yeah, that's probably, even though he wasn't on the sleepers list and JP Sears was, I don't know. Either one of them, I guess, would be my top choices.
Yeah, I think so too. Taillon and Sears for Friday. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.